You see, you want to know about memory, and I want to tell you about false memories, because that's what I know something about. How to make people believe that they had experiences that they didn't really have. How are people so susceptible to this kind of suggestion? And what happens when you feed them erroneous information and they now come to believe that things happened to them when they were children that didn't really happen? What's it like for them? So I think that cognitive psychologists have often had a more of a fascination with errors, the mistakes people make, rather than how good it is. And I probably exemplify that.
In het woonhuis van Elizabeth Loftus, gelegen aan Lake Washington in Seattle, zit een echtpaar. Het echtpaar is er op Loftus verzoek. Het is een vreemde bijeenkomst. Op het uitzicht na lijkt elke relatie met schoonheid, laat staan met troost, afwezig. Hij heet Phil Hoxter, een onderwijzer, vocht ooit in Korea. Hij hield er nog een medaille aan over. Zij heet Susie Hoxter. Ze speelt piano als het leven moeilijk is. Hij werd niet lang geleden ten onrechte beschuldigd van seksueel misbruik van een van hun dochters. We praten over een lijdensweg. De zon staat vol op het meer.
When we were first accused of this, we had no idea what on earth this is all about.
It was a particular day.
Yeah.
It came in like boom.
Yep. In a letter.
Well, we had a warning.
We had a warning
letter
that said,
don't contact me. I need to work out some problems in my past childhood. And so we wondered, what in the world was that?
She was not living at home at that moment.
No.
What age was
she? She was about 34 or so and had four kids.
And before that, the relationship was perfectly normal?
Oh, it was just fine.
Well, yeah.
Between us, but not between her and her husband.
She had a very abusive husband who she eventually then divorced. And after that divorce, then she went to a home for battered women. They helped her get through the divorce, and they said to her...
They put her in a
group.
A support group.
And they said to her, maybe
that's fine. Little did we know.
What you've been through, maybe you should have some counseling. What do we know? Sounded good to us.
Okay.
It turns out that the kind of counseling that was made available was just right down in to the depths of everything you've ever can imagine. The people that believe in this repressed memory stuff, they start off, in my way of thinking, they start off with one false idea. That if something bad happened to you, the only way you can get better is go back and relive it. You got to go and drag yourself through whatever awful thing happened to you. And it seems to me the counsel that's worth their salt will say, yeah, I agree, that was pretty bad. Now, what can we do to make your life better from here forward? And in the process of trying to drag them through what supposedly happened to them, if you don't remember it, these kind of people will help you get some memories because, you got to be a victim. And you got to be a bigger victim than the person sitting over there or over there. And the actual accusations were horrendous, and the one that everyone is kind of amazed at is that she could remember my abuse of her from the time she was born. And that kind of makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit. And So we kind of just grew into our shells and didn't mention this to anyone. Didn't tell a soul until the alumni magazine from the U came one day, and there was an article by Elizabeth that said, repressed
memories, how reliable are they? And I thought, oh, Carol mentioned those repressed memories. This must be a cue to the clue to what's going on here. So I rang up Elizabeth just immediately, and she was so kind. She said, well, my class is researching this very subject. Would you like to come down and meet the class and talk with them? So we came and met her, and this was the first contact we'd ever had that knew anything outside the family. Mm-hmm.
All of our family was aware of this because the accusing letter copy was sent to all of our immediate family. We had 5 kids, so everyone got their own copy. But I was accused, and Susie's was equally guilty because she didn't protect our daughter. She knew this was going on. She knew it was going and didn't protect.
All of this was going on.
And now, as we've talked to lots of people involved in these kinds of things, it turns out that the cases where the man and the wife have stood together, it probably kept me from going, jumping off a bridge somewhere, because I knew it couldn't have happened. No way could that have happened. And when Susie stood by me and said, there's no way that could happen.
In a sense, you were lucky that she accused Susie also.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One of the things that I've been asked is, well, how do you, if someone comes to you and say, I've been falsely accused by my daughter, how do you know they're telling you the truth? I don't. I simply know that my closest friends didn't run me through some kind of a battery of tests. When I said I'd been falsely accused, they knew me and they simply accepted me, that what I said was true.
And she obviously believed all of the terrible things to be true, because when she got so damaged by this therapy that she could no longer handle her children, she started giving them away to the ex-husband who had abused her so terribly. And here was her loving family right there, willing to give any kind of help that we possibly could, and yet she wouldn't trust any of us with her children. She gradually sent, I believe she sent all of them to him.
Every one of them.
She'd start out with 1 or 2, we'd hear about it, and finally when the boys came to see us for the first time in 4 years, they told us what had been happening. And they said that when it really started getting more serious, she spent some time in the hospital because she'd tried to take her own life, tried to commit suicide, and we were never informed about that. That apparently happened on early in her therapy.
You don't know why? Now she had a solution? She was abused by you both or by you?
I presume that was it. That's the thread that has gone all the way through the whole story. She was very vulnerable after the experience she'd had with her marriage.
Yeah.
And anyone that would offer any kind of help, but she trusted them, you see. And that's what they did to her.
Mm-hmm. She wanted a solution.
She wanted a solution.
And he offered one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were very willing to offer.
And she was grateful, of course.
Oh, of course.
I'm sure. It's hard to understand. I remember when I was in the Army, we were in Japan, and they marched us all into a great big auditorium one day and said, since you're going to Korea, you need to know what the rules of war are. Name, rank, serial number if you're captured, and you might be subjected to brainwashing. And that I don't remember all of the details that they gave us, but our total information consisted of about an hour's worth of talk by someone, and brainwashing was the military knows all about that. I think they know more about it now than maybe they did back in the 50s, but I think it's pure and simple a form of brainwashing, just
and it's easy.
I think it's easy. It must be easy, especially if someone already is vulnerable and has some kind of a problem. I have never heard of one person going to a therapist and say, I think I have repressed memory, could you help me get them back? They go for all kinds of reasons. There's the marriage is on the rocks, and I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or I can't sleep. Goes on and on and on. The reasons they go for therapy. My daughter went for counseling because she had lived through a horrendous marriage, and if the counselor has the idea, in my opinion, if the counselor has the idea that the only way you can get better is first we have to go back and relive all of the things in your past that we've dug up before you can get any better, then they start with a bad premise.
Could you say that by transforming her memories, you are meeting now a different person?
Oh yeah.
Very definitely.
Yep.
What's the difference?
We don't
The
know.
Carol before the accusations.
Well,
and
Oh,
Carol
she
now.
was always sweet and loving, and now she's cold and very distant.
Twee uur lang praten we met het echtpaar Hoxter. Elizabeth Loftus luistert vooral. Vooraf schreef ze: ik weet eigenlijk niet of ik in de serie pas. De troost waaraan ik denk is er nogal schraler. Hij komt voort uit pure ellende. Ik weet niet of je dat nou precies in gedachten hebt.
Well, this is why I kind of wondered whether I was really going to fit very well into this program, because when I think about what is really beautiful right now, in the midst of all the tragedies that I work with, all these disrupted and destroyed families, all these misery that these false accusations have brought on people, there are a few good things that have come out of this, and one is that these families they find each other, they form relationships that are new and that are deep and powerful over this common problem. They are often very grateful to me for showing them and helping them find some small thing they can do, and for being there fighting for the falsely accused, and they express that gratitude, and I appreciate it, and makes me feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of being with, helping these falsely accused people. And the group of students that I've put together, some of the students and colleagues and friends that I work with on these problems are, it's a closeness for us too. Like we're working on something really important that's making a difference in people's lives. It's beautiful.
And the consolation part?
Well, does it have to be beauty and consolation? How about beauty or consolation? I mean, I mean, if I had to put them together, maybe for me it's, if I'm ever feeling like, what is there to life, what matters in life? I'm reminded repeatedly through these experiences with these people that this is something very important, and so if I'm ever upset, it's very consoling for me.
Zal het hier over gaan, het komende uur? Over de troost die voortspruit uit ellende? Ja, maar op een andere manier dan tot nu toe. Het zal blijven gaan over herinneringen, hoe ze vervormd, getransformeerd en vernietigd kunnen worden, maar dan wel over de herinneringen van Elizabeth Loftus zelf. Dit is ze trouwens, ongeveer 5 jaar jong. Om preciezer te zijn, we zullen het hebben over 1 traumatische herinnering uit haar kindertijd. Maar nog even praten we over herinneringen in het algemeen.
The work that I would say I'm most proud of is the work that really challenges the idea that memory works like a videotape recorder. We don't just record the event and play it back later, but rather memory is very constructive, and we take bits and pieces of information from other places, other times, and amalgamate it with other memories and construct something new. And I know something about that process now from hundreds of experiments.
What's the beauty of it?
Well, I like the idea of challenging an old wisdom, that, some cherished beliefs, and being able to demonstrate that things are different. I think that most of my career I have spent just studying this memory process as it becomes distorted or transformed or deteriorated in some way. But I'm now thinking that as much as I know about how to corrupt memory with suggestion and the power of suggestion, that I ought to be able to put these ideas to some good use for people and distort their memories maybe in a positive way, or in a way that allows them to live a happier or healthier life. In the work that I do, we don't take memories away, we don't erase memories, we add new ones and distort old ones. So removing memories is not something I know a lot about yet. So removing behaviors, I don't think it's going to be as easy as adding new ones.
How far can you go with manipulating memory in this sense of adding?
Well, I don't, in this new area that I think I might want to go, this, let's make people behave in ways and think thoughts that are happier and healthier for them. That's all new. And it's all in the realm of speculation right now with a little bit of pilot data. But how far can you go with people in terms of distorting their memories for the past? We now have found some new ways of making people believe that they were bullied when they were a child, that they were lost and frightened, that they were faced a great danger and were rescued from danger by the power of suggestion.
And the last subject you're working on?
That's what that's about.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, I have to show you.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to appreciate how really cool this study is. Okay, so these are my latest experiments with my Italian collaborator Giuliana Mazzoni, and here's what happens in this particular study. People think it's 2 completely different studies. Mm-hmm. In one study, we're asking people about their childhood. We give them a life events inventory. So we're just saying, tell me about some things that happened to you when you were a child. Did this happen or did this happen? And like, you faced a great danger, and before the age of 3, on a scale from 1 to 8, where 1 is definitely didn't happen and 8 is definitely did happen, how likely is that happened to you? And let's say you say, that didn't happen to me, I give it a 1 or a 2. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, we'll have you come back and do that again. Long list of items about your childhood, and you tell us. And so we're looking to see, do you change your answers or do you give the same answer? But half of these individuals will participate in what they think is a completely unrelated study, in which they will come into a clinical psychologist who will take their dream report. They come in with a dream report about whatever they dreamed last night. They bring it to the clinical psychologist, and the clinical psychologist says, that dream means to me that you have a sense of fear of abandonment. That dream means to me that when you were very young, you may have been lost in a big public space or felt abandoned by your parents or what have you. In other words, and it's a 30-minute mini therapy session where this expert conveys to that subject that whatever their dream material was and the way they discussed it and thought about it, it indicates something like this happened to them as a child. Okay, and then these people will come back and tell about their childhood again as part of this other experiment. So here's what happens in this. If you just look at, okay, what happens to their belief that they got lost in a public place or public space? Control subjects, the white bars, some go up, some go down, there's nothing consistent that happens. But those people who went through the dream interpretation session, almost 90% of them increased their belief that they had this experience as a child. Mm-hmm. They say they were abandoned. They increased their belief they were abandoned by their parents. They increased their belief that when they were young, they were lonely and lost in an unfamiliar place. And so what this study is showing is that just 30 minutes with a total stranger who takes a little bit of your dream and listens to you and feeds the stuff back to you is enough to cause you weeks later to tell somebody else that this happened to you as a child. And so we have now many more experiments that show that you can do this with all kinds of experiences, not just getting lost, but being bullied by someone, facing a great danger, that this dream interpretation can last for at least a month. At least a month later, people are still saying to somebody else, this happened to me. So I think we have really, really learned something about the power of suggestion to completely alter people's autobiography here. And now we're asking, well, what is it that we did to them? Do they just have a belief? When they tell you here, yeah, I was lost, I was rescued, I was bullied, whatever. Do they have a memory for that? Have they developed some memory over the course of this period, or do they just have the belief, the raw, cold belief with no memory? And the last of these studies shows that about half of them actually go on to get some memory. So now what we're trying to do is sort of track that, where in this whole, what happens from the moment they walk out of that dream interpretation? And when they walk out, they say, really, I don't remember anything like that. But 2 weeks later, they do. So where did it come from and how did it grow? Anyhow, it's very exciting because these effects are extremely strong and reliable, and the implications, not only for the study of memory and memory distortion, but for what goes on in psychotherapy, are very, very profound.
What goes on in psychotherapy?
That kind of thing, where somebody comes in and some expert says, well, in my experience, when I see those symptoms, or when I see people dreaming dreams of serpents or whatever, it usually means, and why don't you think about whether maybe this happened to you? And, maybe these therapists don't realize just how much power they have to distort the way people think about their past.
I imagine you not realizing what you can do with memory, coming in psychotherapy, talking about your mother. They can change your memory of your mother. They can change the memory of your mother in the sense that you don't cry anymore about her. They make a kind of servant out of her, kind of never caring mother. Is it possible?
Well, it is possible. I mean, but do I want that?
No, but is it possible?
I mean, it might be possible. Yeah, it might be possible, but I don't know if I want people messing with my connection to my mother.
Het is een wonderschone dag als we afdalen in de herinneringen van Loftus zelf. We praten over de brand, toen Elizabeth Loftus nog Elizabeth Fishman heette. Toen ze 16 jaar jong was. De brand in Los Angeles. De vuurzee waaruit ze alleen haar dagboeken en haar teddybeer wist te redden.
Well, this is the Life magazine that has the story of the fire, and so the first thing, you can see that it's from November 17th, 1961, and it's got the football team for the Minnesota Vikings on the cover that issue. And then, just to get a feel for, when it was, you can see that the President Kennedy was still in office, and Nehru was still in power. You can see what kind of automobiles were being sold then during that year. This is the 1962 Dodge. And then you go to the story of the week, and it's a story about firestorms in Los Angeles. And so this is
That's you.
Yeah, this is a picture of me watching my house burn down. And
Here you are, yeah.
right, and here I am run to a neighbor and call for help. There was a neighbor whose house wasn't burning, and they let me use their phone, and I was calling my father. And you can see here the house is burning, and my brother and I are trying to carry some things out, away, and I had managed to get into the middle of this area because I knew a way home, a shortcut home, and the police were not barricading at that spot. And you can see here this was a very big fire. There were maybe 450 homes that burned down, and here's how big it is from a helicopter in Los Angeles over the area. And then you can see here some of the other people who lost their houses or almost lost their houses, like Zsa Zsa Gabor and Maureen O'Hara and Fred McMurray and Burt Lancaster and Joey Brown, and here's Nixon, the former President Nixon, on his roof. He wasn't president yet. With a hosing down his house. And then there's this picture which shows the devastation in some parts of the city where the fire hit.
We praten er even over de brand, maar niet lang. Het was slechts een gebeurtenis, zegt Loftus, geen traumatische. Het is ook geen traumatische herinnering. Een andere herinnering is dat wel, die aan haar moeder. Toen Elizabeth Loftus 14 jaar jong was, 2 jaar voor de brand, overleed haar moeder. Overleed? Ze werd dood aangetroffen in het zwembad achter het huis. Verdronken. Een ongeluk? Hoe gaat een geheugendeskundige om met die ene traumatische herinnering? Wat voor herinnering is het eigenlijk? Aan iemand die ze kende? Aan iemand die ze graag had willen kennen? Gaat er misschien toch enige troost schuil in die herinnering, hoe traumatisch hij ook is? Is de herinnering juist? Is hij in de loop der jaren vervormd? Ik heb er geen bezwaar tegen om erover te praten, zegt ze. Maar moeilijk is het wel.
Well, the fire is not too hard to talk about. I don't want to think about my mother, but because there was just so much sadness that I don't want to wreck my mascara. It took too long to get it on this morning. Just with people dying and sad things happening. So I guess I would have to try to find any kind of happiness from my friends and, doing things like going to the beach and, staying up late talking with girlfriends and going out with boyfriends. And that was, I guess, what I think of as what was fun in the childhood. I worked hard too.
At school?
I studied, I got good grades, I volunteered for things. And
you always worked? Now the reason?
Maybe distraction.
From what? Sadness? If you reread the diaries, what kind of a child is appearing again?
I seemed very shallow. I didn't, to me. The girl in the diaries was, just interested in Neil. And, was he calling or was he not calling? And did we go to the beach that day? And did we go shopping that day? And what did we buy? And it didn't seem very deep, except for the period during which my mother died.
Can you relive your own past, or is it distorted or transformed, or?
It feels very distant. Even
as a stranger, the 16-year-old Elizabeth.
Well, no, there's still some pieces of her inside here, definitely. And but I think I'm better able to cope with problems. Well, not that I did such a bad job back then. I did make it this far. But I don't know, she just, the 16-year-old, she was just so much more, I don't know, uninteresting, and just interested in being with friends and going out on dates, and it didn't seem like all that many other things mattered. I mean, I'm not sure what's supposed to matter to somebody who's 15 or 16 or 14, but right these days I am actually getting letters and emails from 13 and 14 and 15-year-old kids who say, I read your article in Scientific American and I love your study and I want to try to do it for my science project, and things like that. Well, I don't know that I was doing that kind of thing back then. I mean,
this is mysterious, because for you it's difficult, if not impossible, to talk about your early childhood, your childhood, because of the sadness. What you're describing, that living your own childhood at that time, you didn't care too much about the same sadness.
Well, No, I mean, I cared about what was happening. Every time somebody died, it was horrible. And just horrible. But I couldn't, I couldn't just completely dwell on that because I would just go crazy. There were a few other problems too, though. We had the stepmother arrived, and then we had the step brothers and sisters, and we had now a whole new blended family with all these complications, and so that became a daily problem. And I would say the one good thing to come out of it is my connection to my brothers, which is very close, because we went through all that together and kind of needed each other and were there for each other. So yeah, life was one big kind of trying to escape the problems. And so I would work hard and I would party hard. And went to the beach a lot and met lots of people and just tried to throw myself into teenage fun.
No beauty, no consolation, escape.
When I think about, I do think that some of the friendships that I developed back then, and the two friends from Southern California who I still have, and I still see, and we were together, when we got married, and we were together when we got divorced, and I see them when I go to Southern California, and we do what we used to do, which is go out, and have a party or sit around and talk about men, and so I like those relationships, and I'm not sure I appreciated the beauty of the beginning of them back then, but I do now, because I wasn't deep enough, I wasn't sitting still enough to contemplate what was happening. I was too busy trying to keep busy.
Like you are now. You're a workaholic.
Yeah. I would say that's probably a good way to describe me, and it's pretty obvious to people who know me. But I why not if you like what you're doing?
Yeah. But when you were 14, your mother died. After so many years, for you it's nearly impossible to talk about it. Isn't that a little bit strange?
It is. It is. But it's okay. I've accepted the fact I don't need to get over this. If I'm not over it now, I'm probably never going to get over it, but it's okay.
When you grew up, did the word God have any meaning?
Well, God was mentioned.
As?
Well, I do remember being over at my aunt's and for one of the holidays and asking if I hid behind the curtain, would God still be able to see me? And she said yes. So it was a little frightening that somebody could always know what you were doing and thinking there, but I don't think about it very much now.
Because?
I think after my mother died, I couldn't really be a God.
Donderdag 9 juli 1959. Vandaag is er niet veel gebeurd. Zijn gangetje. Vanavond belde papa en we hebben heel fijn zitten praten. Mama en ik hebben tot 12 uur gepraat over haar jeugd en andere dingen. Ik was heel gelukkig, omdat we nooit zo goed met elkaar overweg konden en nu we praten leek dat veranderd te zijn. Vrijdag 10 juli. Vandaag 10 juli 1959 was de meest tragische dag van mijn leven. Mijn liefste moeder, waar ik net zo'n hechte vriendschap mee had gesloten, is dood. Toen we vanmorgen wakker werden, was ze weg. Een uur later vonden we haar in het zwembad. God alleen weet wat er gebeurd is. Ik weet dat het leven moet doorgaan en dat we allemaal heel dapper moeten zijn. Ik probeer tegen mezelf te zeggen dat alleen haar lichaam weg is en dat haar ziel en haar liefde bij ons blijven. Nu ze dood is, besef ik hoeveel ik van haar houd en hoe moeilijk het zal zijn om verder te gaan. Ik voel me leeg van binnen, alsof ik een groot deel van mezelf verloren ben. Als mijn moeder me kan horen, hoop ik dat ze weet dat ik altijd heel veel van haar zal houden.
How do you remember her? As a warm, caring personality?
Yes. She was a very, she gave up working and raised a family and spent her last years as the wife of a doctor and the mother of 3 children and ran the household. And I always thought that that's what I'd do when I grew up, but it didn't turn out that way. But that's what she did, and it isn't really the life I would want. I mean, I think she could have done more, I don't know, or well, I'm not sure. I mean, but I think of her as, competent, and she cared about her kids.
Are you romanticizing the picture, the mental picture of your mother, because of what happened, the fact that she died?
Oh, probably. But I do remember that, when, even one time when I was between a blue skirt and a gray skirt, that she bought them both for me. And she used to cut the meat so that I would get the center piece and all the fat would be off of it. Those things.
Your mother dying must have been a decisive moment of your life. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
But decisive in which respect?
Well, it comes up so much. The important events when you wish you could be there.
Did you always feel alone after your mother died? Sort of betrayal also, that you dared to die when you were 14?
A little, yeah. And then my father died. Of course, that was about 15 years later. But then I really felt like an orphan. But I just figured out how to work harder.
Would you ever say that Loftus, at the age of 14, felt betrayed because her mother died and was alone for the rest of her life since? Trying to escape the loneliness, but nevertheless, am I dramatizing?
Well, no, it's partly true. I don't like to hear it that way, really, but it's partly true. I'd like to think that I somehow turned this adversity into something good.
Yeah. Or working life as a reaction to your mother's dying. Could be.
It very well could be.
What kind of kid were you before she died? You remember the 14-year-old before passing away of your mother and after?
Well, I do think that afterwards I started to, well, at times I would think, well, nothing else is going to be able to hurt me. I've been hurt as much as you can be hurt. No one else will be able to hurt me. That's good. That wasn't true. Because I would find I'd get hurt again and again. I don't know when I started to feel that I needed to have more than one of everything. So that if you lost one, you wouldn't be left with none. Just don't let any one thing become too important.
Take two mothers instead of one. That feeling? Be sure that it doesn't happen
Two
again.
best friends, two boyfriends, two favorite dresses, two everything. So if something happens to one of them, at least there's another one.
And for you, this is directly connected to your mother. The feeling of loneliness and loss and betrayal.
I think so.
You're not sure?
Well, it makes sense to me, but who knows? I mean, who knows? And I don't think about it very much, I mean, I think about it when somebody asks me about it because I have to, but I try not to think about it. I bought, a book came out, Motherless Daughters. I bought that book. I haven't opened it. I can't read it. I keep waiting for the right time, but it doesn't come.
No, it will never come.
Well, I bought it because I thought maybe I would feel better if I read it. But I can't read it, so.
Do you often talk with people about your mother and the way she died?
No.
Or... No?
No, I did have I did have a very strange experience having to do with my mother's death, and I did talk about that, but more because it related to my current work. And I just had another thought that, you're asking about, are you going to feel this way forever? Probably, but I don't think it's so bad to feel this way. Because when my uncle was alive, he would bring up the subject of my mother. I think he liked it when I cried. It reminded him of his sister, and it made us close.
She did the same, crying.
I don't know if she did. Oh, no, I think he appreciated it.
Yeah, like his sister you were. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, she was his, baby sister, and he missed her. So we would talk about her when we would get together. And it was our thing.
Do you understand, it's so many years later, that for Beth, her mother dying is still a memory relatively fresh, time and again?
I do understand that. Is it okay to say that?
Yeah.
We were in a meeting trying to plan our next research. We were looking for ideas. We like to sit around a table and throw ideas out. Okay, and one idea that was brought up was drowning. And Juliana and I were sitting there talking about it, and then we stopped and we realized Beth was sitting there crying and said, "We can't use that, please, because during this whole research, I can't be thinking of my mother. It's too painful." And we understood immediately, and we felt horrible that we had brought this up. But we didn't realize that it was, after all these years, it was still so close to the surface. I think she and I talked about it just a little bit later. And it was, what can we do? What can we do to help? It is still so close to the surface for her. And, that's a sadness for me that I can't seem to help her. I can't seem to help Beth with that.
Do you understand why it's still there? Time and again, every day.
Well, I'm not sure that I fully understand it. I can only speculate. Part of it goes back to her need, not filling herself up and giving constantly to other people. And maybe that was the maternal role. That there was the mother there, the unconditional love, someone who always was there for you. And without that, with Beth giving constantly, maybe that's why it stays so close to the surface. I mean, I'm her friend. She has wonderful friends. But your mother, she didn't have her in her life long enough, I believe. And maybe that's part of it.
Did you see your mother crying often or not?
No.
Was she the same kind of personality as you are?
I don't know.
You never saw her crying? Or you don't remember?
I don't, I mean, she probably cried. I just don't remember. I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I know a little bit about her. I've read all the letters that she wrote to my father every day while he was at the war, away during World War II. And what all the letters that he wrote back. But I don't even know how much I know her as a human being. You know, what was she like to her friends or to her...
You don't know what you're missing. You miss her, but you don't know who you're missing.
Yeah, in a way it's almost like the idea.
The desire for a mom. Not the real one, perhaps. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
This is strange.
It's not strange to me. I think probably You can miss the idea of a mother.
Yeah, I remember Oliver Sacks once saying that once we were supposed to live in an Acadian world in our childhood, and the rest of our lives we are busy recapturing that Acadia, although perhaps it never existed. You know what I mean?
Well, I could buy that. I mean, I'm sure that
Thinking about your mother, your projection as this was Acadia, the first 14 years of my life. But you don't really remember what happened, who she was.
Right. I mean, it might be a lot of projection, but so what do I do if I decide that's true? Then what? I don't think it's going to change anything.
No, I'm talking about remembering. You're crying the moment I say mother, 14, but Loftus, swimming pool. Misery at that moment, sadness. But who died? How well did you know the person? How good is memory concerning your mother?
I don't think I don't know. In some ways I knew her. I mean, I just spent those years with her. 14 years, maybe, not remembering all of them, but... And I would learn things later. I'd learn things from reading her letters that she wrote and speaking to our other family members about her.
Those letters. What kind of a person did write those letters to your father in the war?
Well, they hadn't been married very long, so there was still a lot of, romance, and then there was all the discussion about me when I was born. And apparently he wanted a boy, so she had to kind of apologize.
Really?
I mean, say, I'm sorry she's not a boy, but she is cute. So. But that's okay. He eventually got his voice. So.
What kind of person was she?
I mean, to me, she was smart, and I mean, I think she was. I don't know if this is right or not, but I think she was smart and nice and beautiful, and.
That's all. This is the italic version of smart, wise, beautiful. I don't know of any such person in life.
You don't?
Except from your mother?
No, there are people around like that. I mean, but
She wasn't nasty or...
No, she wasn't nasty. She was, if anything, she was depressed. But she wasn't nasty.
Do you remember her being depressed? Her depressions?
I do, yes.
You come home from school?
I don't know that I remember any specific times, but she was sad.
It's fascinating to know what you actually remember or what you do want to remember concerning your mother. You're dealing with this stuff your whole life now.
Right, but I deal with other people's memories.
Yeah, and I try to deal with yours. find out if you have any real memories concerning your mother, or transformed, and memory is made more beautiful.
Well, I'm sure I'm making them more beautiful. I mean, I know after she died I felt horrible that I hadn't been nicer to her. You know, that I was so wrapped up in my own teenage things. And I hadn't been nicer to her. But I remember that because I wrote it in my diary.
At the age of 15, 16?
Probably 14.
Did you write
My
about...
greatest regret.
Yes?
That's what I wrote.
You can still relive your writing, My Greatest Regret. You can touch that girl of 14.
I don't know, it feels far.
Almost lost, almost in the very,
Well,
very
I
distance.
mean, there's more to my greatest regret. I mean, I didn't write it in the diary. I wrote it on a separate piece of paper, and I clipped it to a page of the diary so I could remove it.
It was unbearable to know.
No, I just, in case somebody ever demanded to see my diary, and I didn't want them to see that. I could take it away and give them the rest.
Do you still regret it? Because you were a teenager. Teenagers don't care too much about mothers and fathers. Only if they die.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Do you still feel guilty?
Yes. It's kind of interesting because I would go on to do a piece of research on regret, and I never thought about it. I never thought about it. It didn't bring back the memory of my greatest regret. But it was a whole piece of research on whether people regret more what they did or what they didn't do. And we found that people seem to more often regret what they didn't do rather than what they did. So it's another example.
What was it you didn't do concerning your mother?
I wasn't nice to her. Well, I wasn't that bad, I guess. I mean, I was, according to what I wrote, to see if I can do this. She would be watching TV and ask me to come sit by her, and I'd say, I'm busy now. Or she'd be in my room and we'd get into a fight because she wouldn't leave.
That's a normal reaction for a kid.
Well, I know that teenagers can be awful to their parents.
Monsters.
Horrible.
No problem. Unless your mother died. Why are you so sure that the memory of your mother, the trauma, is not, if even unconsciously, the reason why you started to work on memory?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think if I were going to design a piece of research based on my own experience with my memories of my mother, that I would have been looking at something different. I mean, I would be looking at what it causes, intrusive thoughts or sad feelings, or that repeat themselves over and over for some kinds of horrible experiences and not others. I mean, I would have designed my experiments to answer a different question than the questions that I spent the last 20 years asking. So that may not be right, but then that's what seems logical to me.
Is she a different person, or is the memory fossilized in time?
No, she looks like that picture.
She's still the same lady?
Yeah, she looks just like the picture.
Same voice?
Don't really get a voice.
No? A face?
Mm-hmm.
Her singing?
Don't really remember that.
If I were Elizabeth Loftus now and wanted to change your memory of your mother in order that you should be able to forget her from time to time, what should I have to do?
I don't know. I mean, maybe you could put me into a group with other people and we could just talk about it over and over and over. Maybe that would work. But I haven't chosen to do that for some reason.
The reason is?
I don't have any idea. Maybe I just don't want to go through that like huge burst of pain that, even to get to the other side.
The memory makes you sad, and at the same time you're cherishing it, or not?
I'm not sure cherish is the right word, because it doesn't feel good at all.
Perhaps it's quite simple. You lost your mother, okay, then you have a problem. But the circumstance under which you lost her, perhaps this is the part that brings your memory back time and again. Or is it her herself?
I have no idea.
You know everything about traumatic events and how they are stored in memory. You must know.
Yeah, I don't know this though.
Niet lang na onze ontmoeting, en naar aanleiding daarvan, zal Elizabeth Loftus een lange brief aan haar moeder schrijven. Laat me het slot van die brief citeren. Waarom ben ik zo'n workaholic? Biedt dit werk me dezelfde soort opwinding als die schijnbaar eindeloze verzameling tienerjongens 40 jaar geleden? Biedt het werk me een ontsnapping aan al te pijnlijke gedachten? Voel ik daardoor een soort gewichtigheid die anders aan mijn leven zou ontbreken? 40 jaar geleden ben ik opgehouden met je te schrijven. Maar nu ik mijn verleden herlees, al die dagboeken, zie ik een verband tussen de persoon die ik toen was en wie ik nu ben. Toen was ik druk met jongens en hoefde daardoor niet na te denken over wat er in mijn leven miste. Nu ben ik druk met werk en hoef ik niet veel na te denken over wat er mist. De liefde en de geborgenheid van een gezin, die mis ik. Die mis ik in jou. Ik zal altijd van je blijven houden.